Well, look, Galke, and we're ACES53. If you haven't been here before, ACES stands for attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, and smile. The items that you bring to the table in a sales environment. And the 53 stands for the first Joker in a deck of cards is the 53rd card. And the Joker is that unique ability you bring to the table. It was something I learned in college and I used it for a long period of time. I had it in my little cabinet. It fell out at me last December, and we decided to start this podcast, and we really appreciate it at you being here. It's alive on Tuesdays and Thursdays at, 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock for you, noon for Central.
That's right. And then we upload it to a podcast. We kind of got behind, and now we're getting current. So everything's going to be up there. So again, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you spending the time with us. And today we're going to be talking about, what are we talking about, Brian?
Value, and basically value over pricing. So we talked last week was about too many people start undercutting and creating discounts. And what do? Is it's a race to the bottom, especially if you do a service or if you have a product where there's a large competitive environment. So it could be anything from roofing to services for real estate, you name it. It's just, how do you build value?
Because I run into it. I don't run into it a lot when I get into a price war with somebody, just because that's not how I set up myself personally, because I wanted to make sure that I was authority in my industry. That's why I have the radio show, been a documentary, wrote the book. So it doesn't come in all the time, but it does come in occasionally. Like I have one right now where I was helping an agent out and I qualified somebody. I know the person from being around in the industry. He was doing something else for years, but I'm not a good friend, amazing friend of his. But he's like, hey, I have a friend that's in the mortgage industry. I reached out to him yesterday. He hasn't gotten back to me. And I think I talked about this last week, and I told him everything he could do within a minute. Right.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay. And then I talked to him, just catching up with him because I knew they wrote an offer. And he's like, I just want to let you know, my friend of mine got back to me. And he's saying, well, I can do this. What can he do? And is there cost? And I'm like, well, we can't do anything until you get into contract. So we'll just look at that time. But I know that if I do this on price, I'm going to lose. Right. Because his friend is in the Bay Area, and because they deal with a certain size loans all the time, they have their pricing set at a certain thing. Right. We do different size loans, so we have our pricing set at a different way. I'm very competitive across the board. I beat everybody, not trying and not giving away the shop. But sometimes you get in these situations. Do you want the transaction or don't you want the transaction?
Right.
Right. And the question is, what do I want to do for my agent that I work with all the time? They know I know this market better than anybody else. I know what can happen up there. But if this guy gets focused on price only, there could be a major problem.
Right.
Well, so I don't know how do I get that guy off? Not me as a client, as the mortgage person, but the client off price.
Right.
How do you fix that? That is a good question.
It is.
Well, give me an answer, Brian. How do I fix that?
You just tell them to use you. That's it.
Well, my real estate agent is like, you got to use Ed. He knows that market. He knows issues that could come up where that other person doesn't. And he's more local. That would be somebody local in the market. But he's going to say it's all about rate, this and that. Well, yes, to a certain point, but I'm not going to be the lowest game in town. It's just not going to happen. You can't have those three things, right? Whatever it is.
Fast, cheap, and easy. I always get these confused.
Well, I don't. Quality. Here's the thing: is you can't have quality, fast, and cheap. I'm going to just tell you that right there.
I think those are the three. I always get them confused. It's like that and the unconscious, conscious, competence. All those I always end up overthinking it when it comes time to it. But the other thing you'd mentioned that you wanted to talk about today is also, how does time play a factor in all this? Sometimes it's worth it to pay it to have something else done faster for you. So, a very simple example is, do you want to mow your yard, or do you want to pay somebody else to mow your yard for you so you can put your time into other resources? And so that's the other thing that we were going to talk about today is, what is the importance of not just, value over price, but what is the value of your time or your customer's time? And that makes a huge difference. There's three types of products or services out there. There's done for you. You pay someone else to do it, right? Or so you do it for someone else. There's done with you, which is more of a coaching or mentoring where they're teaching you how to do it. So one day you can go off and do it on your own, or you buy a product you study it and you do everything on your own. So there's just a knowledge share, a done with you, and a done for you. And those come with different prices. So when you go and if you want to hire anybody, you can pick up Tim Grover's book, right? Relentless, and read it. That's a experience or exposure. Now, if you want to work with him, you'd have to join a mastermind. So that's the done with you. And then if you want to hire him to be your one-on-one coach or to come in and speak to, let's say, your customers, then it's a done for you, right? So those are the main types of things. And people pay more to have things done faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like we talked about before, it's if using Uber is a simple example, because I use Uber most weekends, and that's
just so you don't get DUI. We all know that.
Well, that by the time you pay to park somewhere, it's the same price as taking Uber. So why not Uber? And then you don't have to deal with it.
Well, not all of us take those extra large just with one of us so we can sit in the back and seem like somebody.
Well, that's funny enough. That's what you were, what direction I was going is Uber X is cheaper, but it's a smaller car or it takes longer sometimes. Now I'll just take the gamble on it. But then you always know, like, for some reason, it's always like 8 minutes away for a regular Uber. But guess what? An Uber Black is available in 2 minutes. So
not everybody's using it.
In a hurry, right? Then you're willing to pay more than, and even though that's a 6-minute difference, if you're in a rush, that 6 minutes may be important. So if you're going to a meeting, a wedding, something where you have to be on time, then that time difference is worth paying the extra money for. And it's something that's so insignificant, $5, but it adds up over time.
I just think it depends on how much you value your time, period, in general. Because I'll take a Black, just, a bigger one first. I'm fat and I need to fit in one. And those little ones just don't work for me. I don't like to squeeze in there, give me give me a shoehorn to get in there. But the issue really is time's really important because we only have so much time. It's the one thing we can't make more of.
Right.
Well, we can make more money. We can make more kids. We can make more other things, but we can't make more time.
Well, since we're talking about Uber, transportation in general, you can get a cheaper flight if you're willing to take 4 layovers and, ridiculous connections. Or do you pay more, not just to get there sooner, but do you pay more to set up in first class so you can get off the plane quicker? Or I see a ton of people that we know are using JSX now. Why?
Because it's nicer.
So I haven't been on there yet, but it's nicer, and you don't have to get there an hour and a half or 2 hours early. You literally pull up, get on the plane 15 minutes later.
No. Okay. It's at least a half hour before it's supposed to.
Right.
You got to be there by the half hour before.
Right. But what I mean is you're on the plane very quick versus, you get to the gate, you don't know when is it really going to take off. It just seems to be a smoother process. So everybody that we know that travels quite a bit, if there's a flight to JSX there, that's what they're taking over going to the traditional airport.
Well, I spurred from the pandemic and being able to have control of your time and go things. And I think that's still to this day, you need to really figure out, we talked about this a couple episodes ago about, you need to find out what you are worth.
Yes.
Per hour.
Right.
And because that's how only things you should do is what you're worth that an hour. Everything else that's below that gets somebody else to do. The Angie's list, now it's just called Angie or whatever.
Right.
And the new one is like, okay, you can be doing this and it shows or you could be doing this and having somebody else so basically there's like, you could be doing the work or you could be having time with your family. Yes. You can be doing this, or you could be out vacationing, and that's the key. What is the best use of your time? And in my industry, it's always been drilled into us that way through, especially I'm going to say his name, Todd Duncan, who's been really big on, and I gotta get rid. He has this book called Time Traps, and it's really he beat into us. You really only need to do the things that are worth your time. Don't mow your lawn, but I enjoy it. Get somebody else to do it for $140 a month or whatever it is. Pool, take care of your pool, be reactive or just have it taken care of for $140 a month. Right. That's the problem, is we don't see that cost of what we're spending time on and where we get taken away, where we can just enjoy the time that we have. Right. Spend time with the family, spend time with your kids. That's the most important thing. And people focus on other stuff. I mean, I work my ass off right now just because our industry is a little different. It's going to change and we'll have more people coming in to help out again. But sometimes we go through these little challenges so that we can figure out what do we need to get rid of. You
We
follow what
think
I mean
about
by that? Is
yeah.
what extra money am I spending on that I'm wasting because I thought it was important, but I really don't need it. And it's amazing how much I've gotten rid of recently.
Well, and I think the reason why time isn't thought of that way is because we think of it in financial terms. So if you say, hey, I sold this house, do I reinvest the money or can I put the money in something else? There's an actual term, opportunity cost. And that is, with that money, what are you giving up? But we don't think about that in terms of time, because most of us that were raised during the industrial age, right? That's when schools were created. And so what did they
When
teach
was
you?
the industrial age?
I don't remember the time frame, but it's basically when the education system was created, it was to create factory workers and employees.
So you said we were all after that, right? Not
Yeah, sorry, we're after
during
that.
that.
Sorry, school was created during the industrial age.
I was
And
like, holy cow, how old do you think you
I'm
are?
175. I'm cool. Don't worry about it. But yeah, schools were created to create employees, and somebody arbitrarily came up with 9 to 5, or 8 to 5.
You're talking about the school or the work?
About work, right?
Yeah.
Now, school does change.
No, they came. That was the whole Henry Ford who came up with the time to go to work and how many days a week for the factory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with anything else.
But I do think, like you were saying earlier, after going through the pandemic, people start reevaluating their time and how they spend it. We have several friends who moved fairly far north, and now some of them will sit in an hour and a half of traffic each way each day, because when they bought the house, it was way out there, and they're reconsidering. So that's part of what they're saying is leading to the great resignation. Is once people had a taste of freedom and having time versus commute time, then sit your butt in an office, then commute back home and get very little personal time and family time, people are now realizing it's not worth it. And that's what's a big, big component in why people are starting side businesses, why people are looking at other things that they can do to bring in revenue other than the traditional 9 to 5.
Right. And that's more power to you.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some people who are like, I'm going to work, 4 days a week, 10-hour days. There's other people, don't want to even do that. Right. Whatever works for you, and how you're going to figure that out, it's up to you. I come from the old school with, just the Monday through Friday and you work this, but our industry that I'm in, the mortgage industry, a lot of those people work all weekends, and then they supposedly take a couple days off during the week, but then they get called on and they did this, and so you really don't take any time off.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Yes.
And then you run into burnout and other things.
Was at an event 2 weeks ago, and there was a loan officer there who she talked about the reason that her kids, she kind of paid for school and everything else, and she got very emotional about it. She said, for 18 years, my kids suffered so I could grow my business, taking calls every day, every weekend, late at night, holidays, because I needed to close more business. And that's what she realized now is she had to put processes in so that she could spend time with her family instead of just focusing on bringing in more money.
Right, because you don't bring in more money, you need more people to support you, and that's how you bring in more money.
Exactly.
Unless the whole industry failed because anyway.
Yeah.
It just we've had a bad year, not a bad year, just an okay year. But the issue was we've never seen interest rates go this high in this period of time. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, there's always these new firsts in the mortgage industry, in the real estate industry, and we've been seeing them a lot more firsts in the last few years.
Yes.
But again, it has to do with time. And the other thing is, we know some other people who do affiliate marketing. They don't even have a real, bear with me, real 9 to 5 job. They have their own job, and they've been doing really well in that industry. And the question is, if everybody keeps getting into it, will it continue to do that well? I was on a podcast last week for my book, and he was talking about, he created an AI for doing, it's like a chat GPT, but it's it uses the same AI that OpenAI uses. OpenAI, not the chat part of it. And it's actually, you put in information in there and it does all the stuff for you. Just fill in the blanks, what you want, and it does everything for you. And he sent it to me to play with.
Oh, I put it on the snooze on it. It apparently didn't go to my phone.
Anyway, so there's just so much AI stuff coming. And again, that's about getting time back and being able to do things so much faster. I mean, there's stuff now that we can just do that takes longer for us to explain to somebody what to do than it does for us to do it ourselves. So then you run into that issue. Right. What do I take on and have other people do? because I'm only supposed to be in front of the client.
Right.
Because that's where I make my money. And that's the problem is if you're doing all this other stuff and you're not in front of that client, are you really using the best time?
Use your time. Well, and that kind of steps us into the first part. So, because I'm Banner Brian, before we started talking about what we want to talk about today is what are, in addition to, we covered the, I think, top like 9 things to build value last week, but what if you're new to a position, or what if you're a new business? What are some of the other ways that you can kind of stand out and build value? And one of the first ones was engage in content marketing. And so that's one of the things you can knock out a bunch of videos in a very short period of time and then drip those videos out to customers. So the just simplest example is there was this kid that was in a different mastermind, and he sold hot tubs, 19 years old. And a coach came on and told him, start creating YouTube videos about all the different questions that hot tub owners have. And so when somebody come in and talk about, well, what about this? What about that? He'd say, oh, I have this whole YouTube channel. And he would actually get people to come back in and buy from him because he was providing free content. They had to record one time, but it lives on forever. So, you and I use TikTok, Instagram, YouTube is the big one. So when you're using Instagram or TikTok, you're competing against the scroll, right? What's the next video? Who's the next person? But YouTube, owned of course by Google, since we know because of Awesome Cosm, is their videos will stay on forever. And so then it becomes the second largest search engine, right? Google being number 1, but YouTube being number 2. So when you're creating content, that's the nice thing, is it can live on beyond you. So that goes back to the time that we're talking about, is you can get your time back by putting your frequently asked questions out there in video content form.
And then this other thing I was talking about, the AI, he's like, you can create 50 pieces of content in a few minutes.
Yeah.
And he's like, and so it's to a point where my avatar, so he has it set up to where it automatically will learn your voice and learn everything about you and who you want. So it'll automatically be from your tone and everything and be created for you. And so that's why I want to learn. And he's like, I have one person who handles it all. She's from the Philippines. And at first there was a language thing, but it doesn't matter anymore because I don't even have to okay this stuff anymore because it's so much in my voice and tone that it's amazing.
There, have you ever met?
So I'm just saying that it's going to get to a point where we won't have to video anything. It'll be us as an avatar. It looks just like us. You type in what you wanted to say and go, and it does it for you.
Just read an article about that and watched one of the videos, and it's kind of scary because, like you said, it basically downloads your face. But there's kind of, and I hate using the word deep fake ones right now, but there's one that if I did the whole podcast like this, the image it would show is me actually staring at you. So if you're somebody who's easily distracted, like I am from time to time, and you find yourself looking at your phone or you're looking away because you got multiple monitors, this will autocorrect it and make it look like I'm always looking at the camera. It's crazy, the technology that's out there.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be totally, but the next question will be is I only want to listen to real ones.
Yes.
Right. And that's going to, how do you figure that out?
Right.
People are going to go, there's just so much content and so much, because I mean, I could, I want to put my book to a course.
Right.
I could actually now just download the PDF and have it read and it would be in my voice and have it recorded that way.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't even have to spend the time and have the perfect studio like I do now and the different things and be able to do the whole Audible in a short period of time. And I don't have to worry about them saying that wasn't recorded in the right tone or right this. It's like, learn to smile when you're talking because people can tell the difference when you're smiling.
Right.
Yeah. Because I was recording a ton of stuff this last weekend for the podcast, and my opener for Helping the Brave, and it doesn't have sound on it. It has music and what we use online. I'm like, I need the voice in there saying, Helping the Brave, a podcast for veterans, helping veterans succeed in life after the uniform comes off, all in 30 minutes. Right. I needed that to a certain point. And I kept playing around with it, but I could have used something else to do the same thing, because one of the softwares I have right now is you can use any of their avatar voices that they have in there, and you can add whatever you want to the beginning of your podcast by just typing it in.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, yeah. So your opener, frick, I forgot to do an opener, and I want this voice. Well, the problem I have with all of them, it sounds too computerized.
Well,
I'm
that's
like,
where,
it says add a new voice. I'm like, I wonder if I can add my voice.
oh, I'm sure with enough recordings it would, but that's where it gets scary. I don't know if you've been reading the different articles about, they figured out how to kind of scam. They'll go and watch somebody's TikTok or Instagram videos. They'll do voice sampling, and then they'll leave a ringless voicemail for somebody saying like, "Hey, grandma, grandpa, I'm stuck in whatever. I need $5,000." And because it sounds like their voice, the parents like, oh, okay, and the grandparents, you name it. That's what gets scary about it all.
And it's happened already.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
and
already
there was
happened.
another one too. That's something else. Same thing. So yeah.
Well, if you've ever, I think the first ones I really saw were,
I think we talked about this last week, didn't we? We say come up with passwords. Come up with certain. So this came up on another podcast, and I said, well, what you need to do is have certain phrases that your family will know to tell if it's real, that you put in somehow. What's the passcode? Oh, hey, I'm trying to log in your account. What's the password?
Right.
And that they, whatever they say, and they know that, oh, this is not true. You know what I mean? If they don't know it, they know it's a fake.
It seemed like about a month or two, I was getting a ton of those of Facebook, so you get somebody, hey, can you do me a favor? Yeah. What is it? Oh, I'm going to send you a link. Just click on it because it says that it will let my close friends help me reset my password. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, whatever.
And I'm like, well, if we're close friends, why do you need my phone number? Wouldn't you already have it? Or I'll say, hey, and they're like, oh, and then they try and, reverse fish you and be like, oh, so what? You don't trust me? I thought we were friends. I'm like, no, I absolutely trust you. That's why just tell me where we met the first time. And then they tend to go away. But we had a friend who lives here in Dallas. Her account was hacked, and all they posted was Bitcoin stuff. Oh, I bought this with my Bitcoin. I bought that. And what happens is phishing works. People aren't smart enough to know that's not the person who owns the account. It's somebody else. And so then they click on the link for, buying Bitcoin, and they're congratulating her on her new car and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, not her. But
yeah, I mean, and I hate when people leave a review, but it's not a review of you, right? It's their so-and-so sold Bitcoin and blah, 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 and you can't get rid of it.
I know. I hate that
you have to mute it or turn off reviews for that site. It's like, give me a break.
It's a pain.
Yeah, people.
Yes.
Scammers, go away.
If you're building,
it's amazing how many people go, oh, I saw your video on blah, blah, blah. Do you need help converting that into blah, blah, blah? It's like, leave me alone. Yeah. I appreciate it, but I only use somebody I know.
Yes. Well, what's the standard? We talked about this a few weeks ago, but find my account, like 6 or 7 random things, then throw in oh, hey, I'm going to send you a DM. That's the standard process. Hold on one second.
Yes, it is. And that's happened a lot. And so what are you going to do? You can't hold on.
Exactly. But what other ways to build value? We talked about this a little bit last time, but we talked about doing postmortems. But one of the things that I liked about this one was talking about actually getting feedback from the customers. Don't just say, hey, how do you like our stuff? But have them actually give you what would they want to improve, because we all think our crap doesn't stink, right? So the golden turd, whatever terminology you want to use, and that is
your language today. We're going to be shadow banned.
We get so emotionally tied to our own stuff that sometimes we need that fresh perspective, and there's no better person to do it than somebody who actually uses it. And so one of the things that I used to like to do was, after doing a training session, go back and do a Q&A with them after they've had a month or so to actually play with it. And then they get to the good questions, because when you deliver a new product or service, if it's something that they'll use for an extended period of time, well, they're all too green. They just got a new, like and I'll just date myself back on this one, but like when a new version of Windows came out, you had to relearn how to use Windows all the time.
Yeah. Well, same thing as anything new these days. Apple changes stuff all the time too.
True. And that's the thing. And so it's one of those things that we used to go and we would give an entire new computer system to a large agency and then be like, okay, here's your training. We're going to leave. And we figured out, no, you need to come back, 30, 60, 90 days afterwards, once they've had hands on the keyboards, and then do 2 things. One, answer their questions, get them more comfortable with the product. But that was the perfect time to get feedback, because most things are developed in-house. And so we have what we think is important, but you really have to find out what's important to your customer base.
Totally true. You need to know your clients. The most important client thing you can know is who your most important client is that you
Mhm.
want, and only focus on them. Sorry, I looked over here while you were talking because this I just got an email regarding you'll never know if you don't try AI. This creates savvy scripts in seconds with AI script generator.
Yes,
I don't like scripts. Scripts aren't for me.
that's right.
Scripts are for losers.
I like the way a guy said it last week at the event I went to, and that was, you won't lose your job to AI, but you'll lose your job to your competitor that uses AI in their business. And that's a really good way to look at it. Is again, it's another tool in the tool belt.
Right.
And people, I was amazed that there are some fairly successful people out there that when you say AI, they're like, "Oh, I've never even used it." And I'm like, "How? You don't have to use it daily, but how have you not even tinkered with it?" It blew my mind.
Well, somebody said it's like not knowing Microsoft Office in the 90s.
Yes, it's crazy.
If you don't, because like I said, I was on that podcast last week, and the guy was talking to me about the AI he created, where he bought the company, and now he's been spending a lot of money to get it created the way he wanted. And he was saying, I use it all the time, and I use it this way, not way other people do it, but this is what I use it for. And blah, blah. He goes, well, you're unique the way you're using it and what you're talking about. And because I learned a long time ago, you're limited by what you ask it and how you ask it. So you really need to know these certain prompts and all these other things that get it to do what you want it to do. And he was talking about, like, his wife is 48 and she didn't want anything to do with it. She was an attorney. And so he built the stuff for her, and now she uses it all the time. And it's important to use it a certain way, but don't write certain things with it, because it's going to grab all the stuff that's out there. Right. One of the things I was doing I'm the president of Rotary this year, and we were having a panel, and we needed their bios, and we're like, we need your bios. And so I just chat GPT'd them all and sent them to them. And there was 2 that needed a sentence taken out of each one. That was out of 4. It took me less than 5 minutes to get Chat GPT to create their bios. And then I took out a couple paragraphs of each one and then sent it to them. Paragraphs are small paragraphs. And to be off by 2 sentences, that's pretty scary. One guy's like, my dates are wrong on this. I go, you might want to go out there and fix that. Right? Like he's only been in the business 11 when truly he's been in 21 years. Well, you might want to go to that site that you have that you've been in the business 11 years.
There was a presentation. I'm just looking at, want to misspell her last name. Okay, I just want to make sure it was right. I'm gonna pop her up here in a second.
All right.
So she was speaking at a different conference I went to 2 months ago, and she knows Steve and a lot of the group that's in there, and it's amazing. They're using AI in so much of what they're teaching people. So they're a company. What do? They help
people not listening on here, but on the podcast. What was on the screen?
Sorry, it's WeLaunch.design, and that's her website. But it's a branding company, so they help you come in, figure out what is your brand, your colors, your logo, all that kind of stuff. But she did an entire breakdown in an hour of AI and how they go and they train the AI for their individual clients. So then the client can start creating their own social media posts, but only after AI knows your brand, your tone of voice, how you present things to the business. And then, once you use it to create like your standard operating procedures and things like that, then you can take that knowledge that it's built, that's really learning about you, and then say, now help me create these social media posts. And her name is Bijal, Bijal, and then Patel, Patel. But her website is WeLaunch.design. And it was the 1 hour I was blown away, because you and I have been playing with Chat GPT for a while. We tried playing with Bard, not so much fun, but just didn't even realize how much deeper you can go. We knew the smarter the question, the better the answer. But as far as it learning your personality and your style, I was unaware of that until that conference. Crazy.
Well, because you can have different tones and different ways. Because the problem is sometimes I have different tones and different things for different podcasts I do, right, and radio show, and how it comes across. And even for my weekly president email that I send out to my Rotary, it has different in every one of those things. And you have to start over, because if you stay in the same place, it's just going to mess it up. You follow me? So sometimes I have to. And the one thing you got to be careful with is there's a standard thing it does across all channels and one of the things is drum roll, please. So if you have anything you've created and that word drum roll, please is in there, take it out.
Interesting.
There's a lot of people, because when I was creating one of my first emails, it says, about my opening, and drum roll, please, blah, blah. I'm like, that's just too nut. And then one of my other past presidents was doing a kick out thing, and it says drum roll, please. I said, you just chat GPT that, didn't you? She goes, yeah. I go, I knew it because that phrase right there.
I don't think I've ever seen it, but hey.
Just be careful when you're writing a full email or something that you are trying to do certain things. It's going to be standard across. It's going to use certain words, certain phrases when it tries to be so, huge about things. And just be careful, is all I'm saying, is you need to understand this kind of stuff.
And especially, you bring up a fantastic point. Nobody ever knows what the algorithm is for all the different platforms, social media, you name it. But because it's Microsoft that owns ChatGPT, and Google's the one who's going to be looking at, Instagram, all those other ones, right? So they're basically going to say, if I recognize that was created by ChatGPT, then I'm going to downplay it to putting it out to so many people. So it's good for content creation, but then you have to personalize it yourself. So if it gives you way to spark ideas, but at the end of the day, you still need to personalize it, or else it'll get lost in the shuffle.
But there is a couple other softwares that you can drop it into that'll take that AI thing out to a certain point, and you can do that. Or I've tone it down, take the fluff out. Right. I'm like, exactly. Take the fluff out, and it takes it out and makes it totally better. Because the thing is, it's trying to be like gung ho, and that's not me. And one of my guys like, you shouldn't change who you are with Rotary. You should be who I go. Okay, I'm a veteran. I'm very direct. If I did my normal email, people would go, God, he's mean, right? Because it's direct. All right, we had this speaker last week. This week's speakers this week, and have a great day.
Right. So mean.
I know. And that's the thing and I've been told at my Rotary, it's like he's like staying right on the time. He's like keeping people on it. It's like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get out on time when you're not supposed to. My time, your time is worth so much. You need to know that. And I'm not going to waste your time. And that's what we're talking about today. You need to know your client's time and not waste it. You need to know what your time is worth so you don't waste that time. You have other people support the things that you need to, so you can just do FaceTime with your clients, period.
Right. Pardon me for 1 second.
No, and so I think a lot of people just don't understand that, how you need to focus. And a lot of people are like, how do I find out what my time is worth? Well, maybe it's not worth that much right now because you're not making as much as you want to make. The question is, what do you want to make? And then divide how much you want to work with that. And that's what your time's worth. And then everything else that you have done needs to be done by somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah. Marshall Silver, years ago, I went to a seminar he did, and it was he called them minimum wage activities. What are you wasting your time on? That's a minimum wage activity that it's smarter for you to pay someone to do it than it is for you to do it yourself.
Yeah. Clean the house. Cleaning your house.
Mow the yard, like you said, the pool. Now, I know friends who they love to mow because that's their meditation time. I freaking hated to mow, so I live in a townhome that doesn't have a yard. So you just pick what's your necessary evil. What are the things that it's smarter for you to do? So I'm very unique because of what I was taught. I can't have just anybody go write my social media posts because each individual facial feature, I have to know it. So it's not anything that AI could pick up and do. Could it do some generic post for me? Yes. But I have something. What's that?
I bet you $100 that there will be an AI out there who can write your post for you and do a better job than you do.
Possibly. So if my mentor had more things online, it absolutely could. But because he had the book and only the flashcards, unless AI has access to that, it's not going to be the content.
It will have access. Give it access to the internet.
Right. But he doesn't have it on the internet. That's what I'm saying is it's a book, right? Now, if he had been doing it the last 5 to 10 years and was doing like YouTube videos, then it could. So yes, now that for the last 6 months, I've been doing YouTube videos and putting more content out there, it will be able to. It's just not available to yet.
Okay. You're wrong on that.
We'll see.
I can tell you exactly how you could do that. So you take the contents of the book,
right?
You break down the certain things, and you tell your AI that you're working on, say, here, learn the following. Right. Now write me some posts from this. It'll create the post. You might have to go record them, but it will create the post. Right. I don't know if there's a social one that does social media yet with your avatar yet, but it will create the post. Then you can go to your other one that has the avatar and say, okay, here's the script, create the thing. I'll be go getting a coffee with my kid. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Right?
Yes. So if we did that with the book and or the flashcards, yes. But since it's not on the internet now, that's what
The
would make
book's not anywhere sold on Amazon or anywhere else.
It is, but not in PDF form. Only physical print.
No, but that's okay because it can. I'm telling you, there's some information out there on it somewhere.
Oh, there is. Well, that'll be a fun exercise before we get back together next week.
I'm just because when I was playing around writing different books through ChatGPT, playing around, I did on cells and facial features and all that, and it did a pretty good chapter on your book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it even said Brian Galke, blah blah blah. So because what I did is I told it to go, your website.
Well, so where was I? Was at
we're getting off subject, but
yeah.
This is just something that I'm saying. You can play with so many things on it that you can go down rabbit holes for hours and hours and hours and come up with stuff. I've had it help me write full sales books that I haven't published or anything because I was just playing around with it to see what I could come up with. And it came up with 12 chapter, 14 chapter sales books that were really good.
Right. And now what's important, we still don't know the long-term effect of AI for two things. One is, since it's pulling from the internet, does anybody have intellectual property anymore? All right. So
that's the other thing is someone can still go after you for grabbing certain things.
Exactly. And then the other one is the case you brought up before of the attorney who used it to write a motion. And it turned out that all the sources were incorrect. So
it wasn't. There's been a couple of them.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of them that way. So what we're saying is just focus on your time right now. And, and that's the most important thing that you need to focus on right now, because the one thing you have control over is your time. And you need to focus on what's the best things for you to do. And then also do that for your clients. Right. That is the most important thing. So I'm going to let you get through your banners and then we're going to go.
Yeah. No, so that's basically, there was only two left. And one was, when we talk about content creation, what are you putting out there? People don't want to just be sold anymore. They want to be educated. And they can already do their own research. They just want to make sure the research they did is correct. So that's why when you look, it's not the OxyClean commercial anymore, but think about, since we brought up infomercials last week, infomercials explained a product to you first, why it was worthwhile to you, and then they did the pitch. And that's where, if you look at most social media, they're saying now 5 to 10 posts, and then you can make a pitch, instead of, there's always going to be a call to action of some type, follow me, do whatever, but it's not the hardcore pitching that used to exist in the internet before, because all you really had was a website and that was it. But with social media, people want knowledge and entertainment at the same time.
Right. And back to your whole I'm more of the jab hook, right? Through the jab hook. That's the one. Yeah. I still think it's 3 then ask. That's just my thing.
Yeah.
I still think that's the best thing. But I see people posting on in their groups or other thing constantly about, I'm here to help you and blah blah blah. It's like, what are you giving them?
Yes.
First.
Grant Cardone is the worst example, because he sends, I think it was like 14 emails a day to people. But you know what? It has to work. He may get some unsubscribes, but he gets people that buys his stuff. And like the joke is, if you buy something from him, then you're gonna get 28 emails instead of 14. But it works for some people, right? So that's the whole thing. Test your market, see what works, pay for ads, try organic. It's all out there. So that's, again, part of what's your time worth. Is it worth it for you to do organic content where you're recording it and putting it out there? Is it better to buy ads, let a marketing company do it for you? All these things are what can give you your time back, but what's also building the value of your brand at the exact same time.
I say do it all.
Yeah.
Do it all.
Mm-hmm.
Do a little bit of everything, because everything, that way you can hit a bunch of different markets, a bunch of different people.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
People want to know who you are before they work with you. They want to find out who you are. And the one thing that these days that we can do is know everything about somebody before we do any business with them.
Right. 100%.
And whether or not we want to work with them. That's why my whole amount of people I've been working with have been going down, because we're like, I don't want to work with that guy.
Right.
Don't say right. That's the joke.
No, I agree. Sometimes I don't want to work with you.
Well, no, it's just you have to. And again, you have to. I was explaining to somebody else, an agent. I'm like, you really need to know before you spend time with a prospect if they're worth your time right now. Because, I saw an article that was talking about you need to make $46,500 to buy the average home these days, starter home these days. That was a $245,000 home. The question is, where the heck is that at? Is that in some place in Tennessee in the mountains or something? That
I was gonna say, you're not near a major metropolitan city if that's
well. And it was talking about you need to make 250,000. That's, I think it was 41 something, but I'll just round it to find the starter home in San Francisco.
Oh, I'm sure
that's a $900,000 starter home. Do you want to live there? No.
I see all these Instagram ads of you can have this mansion, in Texas, and they'll say near Dallas. Yeah, near is an hour and a half away.
Yeah, what's that? What's your definition of near? Yeah.
Exactly. It's closer to Dallas than it is Oklahoma City, but not by much. So
that's right. All right. Brian, thanks for being on the show with me today. I know we're co-hosts on this, but I'm just saying thanks for being here. I know you're not going to be here Thursday coming up, and that's okay. Correct. You're a busy man. You have a lot of places to be.
Jet setting on Thursday. We got a presentation here in Dallas, and I literally drive to the airport and fly to California.
We're in California, San Diego,
Carlsbad. It's Greg Reed's 60th birthday. So
is that what you're going for?
Yeah. Well, he's got Prosperity Camp, and then the last day of it is his birthday. So I'm missing the first day and a half of Prosperity Camp. Then so I'll crash that night, and then he is doing his 60th birthday beach bingo bash.
We'll have fun with that.
Yes. Yeah. So who knows? Might see our other bald-headed friend with the beard.
I doubt it, but who knows?
I don't know.
Show up for that birthday.
He probably goes up for, he shows up himself on every once in a while.
Down. He's in LA. Down. Goes down. Yeah. So south is down, north is up. Yeah.
I don't pay attention to California. I don't care.
I know. I'm just saying in general. It's like, I'm coming down to see you. Well, you better be below me if I'm coming down to see you. Or if I'm coming up to see you, you must be living north of me.
That's way too literal, Ed. Way too literal.
Use it right. All right, people. All right, make it a great day. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate you. If you like what we do here, the best way to support us is go to our YouTube channel, and ACES53. Subscribe. Now that these are on podcast, you can subscribe, share, all those fun things, and go to our actual personal website, YouTube channels, Ed Parcaut and Subtle Skills.
That's it.
Brian needs a personal one. He just doesn't want to work on it.
Oh, you can go to briangalke.com. It would take you to Subtle Skills. So
I know, but you don't have a YouTube channel.
That's true.
To Brian, you should have a Brian.
I just never post to it, but yeah.
Yeah, well, you should.
Yep.
Because what if you sell your company? You gonna start all over?
Maybe.
All right. Make it a great day. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being Brian. Thanks for there.